José Ángel Nápoles, nicknamed Mantequilla, butter, referring to his smooth boxing style, was a Cuban-born Mexican professional boxer, and a World Welterweight Champion. He is frequently ranked as one of the greatest fighters of all time in that division, and is a member of the International Boxing Hall of Fame. His record of the most wins in unified championship bouts in boxing history, shared with Muhammad Ali, was unbeaten for 40 years. After debuting professionally in Cuba, he fought out of Mexico, and became a Mexican citizen. Nápoles debuted as a professional boxer on August 2, 1958 in Cuba, knocking out Julio Rojas in the first round. Nápoles' first 21 bouts were in Cuba, against mostly unknown competition. He did beat Ángel García and Leslie Grant, but lost to Hilton Smith in his first defeat. After beating Enrique Caraballo in March 1961, Nápoles found himself a new challenge. Outside of the ring, Cuban President Fidel Castro banned professional boxing in Cuba, and Nápoles soon found his career in jeopardy. He found asylum in Mexico, where he soon found himself back inside the ring, beating Enrique Camarena by a knockout in 2 rounds on July 21, 1962. He won all 4 of his fights that year. In 1963, he won 7 bouts, and lost 2. He was defeated by Tony Perez and Alfredo Urbina, both by decision, but he beat J.C. Morgan by knockout in 7 rounds, in Venezuela. 1964 was a successful year for Nápoles. He traveled to Japan, where he beat Takeru Yoshimoto by knockout in round 1, and he beat future world champion Carlos Morocho Hernandez by knockout in round 7, this time back in Venezuela. In addition to those wins, he avenged his loss to Urbina by knocking him out twice, the first time in the first round, and the second time in the third. He won 3 more fights in 1965, including another win against Morgan, before seeing a raise in opposition quality when he faced the former world junior welterweight champion Eddie Perkins, beating him by decision in 10 rounds. For his next fight, he met his own future world title challenger, Adolphe Pruitt, beating him by knockout in round 3. In 1966, he won 5 fights, all by knockout, and lost 1, to arch rival Morgan, who knocked him out in round 4. This would be his last loss in 4 years. Nápoles began a streak of 20 wins in a row, 13 of them before challenging for the world's welterweight title. These included avenging the loss to Morgan with a 2-round knockout. During this period, Nápoles also became a fan favorite in Southern California, and, after beating Faith Davis, on February 15 of 1969 in Mexico, he was given an opportunity to win the World Championship when he faced the current champion Curtis Coax in Inglewood, on April 18. Nápoles beat Coax by a knockout in round 13 to become World Welterweight Champion, and, as was becoming commonplace for him, he wore a sombrero after the fight. On June 29, he retained the title in a rematch with Coax by a knockout in round 10 in his hometown of Mexico City, and on October 12, he outpointed former world champion Emil Griffith in 15, also retaining the title. Nápoles began the 1970s by defeating Ernie Indian Red Lopez by a knockout in round 15 in front of an audience that included former world champion Sugar Ray Robinson on February 14, 1970. But after winning 2 non-title bouts, he suffered an upset when he was stopped due to being cut in 4 rounds by Carmen Basilio's nephew Billy Backus, who took the world's welterweight title from Nápoles on December 3 at Syracuse. After winning 1 more fight, he and Backus fought again, for the world welterweight title now in Backus' hands. This time, it was held in Los Angeles, and Nápoles recovered the world championship via an 8th-round stoppage. After 3 non-title wins, including one over Gene Jocelyn, he faced Hedgemon Lewis on December 14, retaining the world title with a decision in 15 rounds, but Nápoles' training habits were suffering. He was alleged to be coming into the gym stinking of alcohol with an attitude towards his seconds. In 1972, he retained the title knocking out Ralph Charles in 7 in England, and then, Pruitt resurfaced again, this time with the world welterweight title on the line. Nápoles retained his crown by knockout in round 2. World traveler Nápoles began 1973 by retaining the title against Lopez again, by knockout in 7, then he visited Grenoble, France, where he retained the crown with a 15-round decision over Roger Menetry, and Toronto, Ontario, Canada where he beat Clyde Gray, once again retaining the world title with a 15-round decision. After this, many boxing fans were asking for a fight between Nápoles and world middleweight champion Carlos Monzon. The fight was made possible when Nápoles moved in weight to challenge Monzon for Monzon's title, so the two dueled on February 9, 1974 at a parking lot in Paris. This would be Nápoles' only bout at the middleweight division, as he was defeated by quitting the match. Nápoles then went back to the welterweight division, and retained the title twice before the year ended, with a knockout in 9 over Lewis, and with a knockout in 3 over Horacio Saldano. In 1975, Nápoles had 2 wins over Armando Muniz, both times to retain his world title. The first time, a technical decision win in 12 rounds at Acapulco, was a controversial win, so a return match was fought in Los Angeles, where Nápoles prevailed by decision. On December 6 of that year, however, Nápoles lost his title to British boxing teacher John H. Stracey, who won over Nápoles by a technical knockout in round 6 at Mexico City despite being floored by Nápoles in round 1. After this fight, Nápoles announced his retirement. Remarkably, he was able to stay away from the temptation of a comeback, much like Marvin Hagler. Nápoles had a final record of 81 wins, and 7 losses, with 54 wins by knockout, which makes him a member of the exclusive group of boxers that won 50 or more fights by knockout in their careers. Nápoles was the son of Pedro Nápoles, a schoolteacher, and his wife Rosa. He had a brother, Pedro Nápoles Jr., had 9 children. He resided in Ciudad Juárez, Chihuahua, Mexico with his wife Bertha. Nápoles co-starred with superstar Santo in a 1974 Mexican wrestler/horror film called Santo and la Venganza de la Llorona, aka Santo, and Mantequilla. Nápoles and the Revenge of the Crying Woman. Nápoles died on August 16, 2019 in Mexico City after a long illness at the age of 79. In 1985, Nápoles was inducted into the Ring Boxing Hall of Fame, and in 1990 into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Nápoles has a professional record of 88 fights, with 81 wins, and 7 losses.